Hello, welcome to All Recaps channel. Today I will recap a 2011 superhero film called Captain America: The First Avenger. Stay tuned and enjoy. The movie takes place during the middle of World War II. Steve Rogers, a skinny kid from Brooklyn, wants to join the army. He is rejected several times because of his various illnesses and his size. Steve Rogers has a good heart and he is very courageous. He is constantly bullied like you in middle school, but what makes him different is he always fights back. Steve has a best friend, James Burns, who has successfully joined the army and defends Steve whenever he can. James Burns will go to England the next day and as such invites Steve to spend one last night with him at a science expo. James Burns, also known as Bucky, brings two pretty women at the expo. Unfortunately, Steve is just like you and doesn't know how to talk to women, which makes his date to snob him. Does that ring any bell of your high school life? Anyway, they witness a futuristic flying car concept presented by a billionaire scientist, Howard Stark. Although the car doesn't fly for long, it impresses everyone. Lonely Steve sees a recruitment center for the army and decides to try again. Bucky discourages him and tells him to try other jobs, but Steve insists on trying again. A strange man stands at the corner and listens to their conversations. Bucky and Steve bid farewell to each other. Steve goes to enlist and the strange man called Abraham Erskine enters the room. He represents the Strategic Scientific Reserve that want to create a super soldier. He also discovers that Steve tried 5 times in 5 different cities to enlist and asks him if he wants to kill Nazis. Steve tells him he doesn't want to kill anyone and just hate bullies. Dr. Erskine is impressed and decides to give Steve a chance, which makes us wish someone too could give us a chance to do what we love. Meanwhile, a high-ranking Nazi called Johann Schmidt has recently found a blue magical cube called the Tesseract. He has a scientist with a penny-wise head called Dr. Zola who successfully harnesses its energy and powers his designs. Schmidt is very happy, congratulates him and intends to use it to conquer the world. Steve begins his basic training with the other soldiers chosen for the super soldier program. Steve is the smallest amongst all of them and doesn't perform well in his training. Colonel Phillips doesn't think Steve is the right man to take the serum as he is too skinny. His choice is another soldier, Gilmore Hodge, who is faster, bigger and stronger. Hodge usually passes all his tests, bullies Steve, and was even rude to their division supervisor, Agent Carter. Dr. Erskine believes Steve is the right person because he is not a bully like Hodge. Colonel Phillips decides to prove his choice wrong and throws a fake grenade during training. All the other soldiers run away except Steve, who jumps on the grenade to protect everyone. He impresses everyone and Agent Carter begins to like him. Steve is chosen to take the super serum made by Dr. Erskine, but he asks him why out of all the better soldiers they choose him. Dr. Erskine explains to him it is because he has a good heart and that serum amplifies everything inside, so a good person becomes better and bad person becomes worse. Dr. Erskine reveals to him he is originally from Germany and used to work with Schmidt. He created a serum which was not ready and Schmidt took it, which made him stronger but had negative consequences. Meanwhile, Schmidt has learned of the serum which will be given to Steve and sends someone to steal it so the Allies can't stand a chance against him. Agent Carter accompanies Steve to the test lab, which is hidden behind a bookshelf. Many important people are there to witness the experiment. Steve enters a weird-looking machine and the experiment starts. He screams in pain, which makes Agent Carter feel pity for the skinny boy and orders Mr. Howard Stark to shut down the machine. Steve tells them not to stop and the experiment finishes. The machine opens and a muscular, sweaty Steve shocks everyone. Agent Carter starts looking at Steve's body with horny eyes and even tries to touch his body. A man in a suit steals the last serum and shoots Dr. Erskine, ending his contract with Marvel Studios. But before Dr. Erskine dies, he reminds Steve to remain a good person and use his new juicy muscle to do good. Steve chases after the man. He realizes he is faster and can jump over fences with ease. He jumps from car to car and lands on top the car of the thief. He tries to kill Steve and becomes distracted. His car crashes, but he survives because Vin Diesel told him how to survive car accidents without a scratch. He is forced to continue on foot and takes a little boy as hostage and shoots at Steve. He runs out of bullets and throws the hostage in water to distract Steve and slow him down. But luckily for Steve, his hostage is not useless and can swim, so Steve goes after the thief who entered an ugly submarine to escape. Steve catches him with ease and interrogates him. He commits suicide, but before dying says "Hail Hydra." Hydra is a German terrorist organization headed by Schmidt, and they intend to win the war and conquer the world. Cropped Mustache Man funds Schmidt, who is his head of advanced weaponry, but he is disappointed Schmidt has not even delivered to him a rifle. He sends some top Nazis to warn Schmidt. They find out that Schmidt also intends to destroy Germany, but Schmidt erases all of them with his new weapons. Mr. Howard Stark examines the Hydra submarine and realizes Hydra's technology is more advanced. Colonel Phillips decides they will take the fight to Hydra, but refuses. Steve will not join because he is just one man and can't do anything. A senator convinces Steve to work as a performer so he can boost the morale of everyone. He becomes a chorus girl and starts performing on stage with many hot chicks. He becomes very famous and even has a comic book. One day he is taken overseas near the front to perform and entertain some soldiers. They are not interested in him and only want to see his hot chicks. Later Agent Carter meets Steve and tell him he was meant for more than that. She also tells Steve 200 men of the 107th were sent to fight Hydra, but only 50 returned. The rest are either dead or captured. Steve realizes his best friend Bucky is part of the 107th and has not returned. Colonel Phillips believes Bucky is dead, but Steve doesn't and decides he will rescue his friend and the others all on his own. Howard and Peggy fly him near the front. Steve jumps out of the plane and parachutes to the surface. He sneaks into the base unnoticed and finds the captured soldiers, but Bucky is not there. The prisoners rush out of the cells and take the base using Hydra weapons. Schmidt sees it and presses a self-destruct button which will destroy the base in 6 minutes. Steve manages and finds Bucky. Bucky is surprised when he sees Steve is bigger. They escape and bump into Schmidt and fight for a brief moment. Schmidt removes his face, revealing a deformed red skull. He makes a short villain speech and goes away, leaving Steve and Bucky in the burning building. Colonel Phillips declares Steve and the others dead. He also shouts at Agent Carter for helping Steve. Suddenly the captured soldiers of the 107th march into the camp with Steve and Bucky at the front. Everyone is happy to see them and they all cheer for Captain America like in your fantasies. Steve recreates the map of other Hydra bases which he saw earlier when he was at the base. Steve puts up a team to take down all those Hydra bases. Steve also begins to get the attention of women because of his records and his Aryan looks. One of the women even kisses him, making Agent Carter jealous. Howard Stark shows Steve the new design of his shield, which is made up of vibranium, the strongest metal on Earth. Steve tells Howard Stark he needs a new design of Captain America uniform. With his new team they destroy most of the Hydra bases on the map. His next mission is to hijack Dr. Zola from a Hydra train. Using a zipline they land on top the CGI train and sneak in. They fight several Hydra soldiers in the train. One of them, who is using a more advanced weapon, blows a hole in the train. Steve knocks him out using his shield while Bucky is left hanging off the train. Steve tries to save his friend but he falls to his death. However, the mission is still a success and Dr. Zola is captured. He is interrogated by the colonel. Dr. Zola reveals Schmidt's plan to use his weapons of mass destruction and destroy every major city on Earth. Red Skull gives a powerful speech to his men, preparing them to conquer the world the next day. Steve mourns the death of Bucky and vows to stop Hydra. The next day he uses an Inspector Gadget-like bike and storm into Hydra base. He is outnumbered and captured. He is taken to the Red Skull, who beats him. He tries to kill Captain America but plot armor saves him and a bunch of American soldiers break in the window, starting a firefight. Red Skull runs away like a fool while Steve chases him. Plot armor saves Captain America again and he runs after Red Skull's plane on foot. Agent Carter and the Colonel give him a ride on a Hydra vehicle. Before he jumps on the plane, Agent Carter gives him a soft kiss. He enters the plane and stops a bunch of Hydra soldiers. He enters the cockpit and fight the Red Skull, who put the plane on autopilot. The plane malfunctions as a result and the Tesseract container is damaged. The Red Skull tries to fix it and picks up the Tesseract with his bare hands. It opens a wormhole above him and the Red Skull is sucked into the portal. The Tesseract burns through the plane and is lost in the ocean. Seeing no way to land the plane without the risk of detonating its weapons, Rogers radios Carter and says goodbye to her before crashing in the Arctic. World War II is finally over and everyone is happy. Stark later recovers the Tesseract from the ocean floor and years later they find Steve's body, who happens to be alive. He wakes up in a hospital years later. He becomes suspicious and escapes the hospital. When he goes outside, he is surprised by the advancement in technology. He crashed in 1945 and suddenly it's 2011. S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury comes and explains to Steve he has been asleep for almost 70 years. The movie ends with Steve realizing it's all true. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also check out my other videos and my shorts where I have recapped movies for you in less than a minute. See you in the next video.